Welcome to Unfiltered, a podcast where real conversations meet real healing. I'm your host, Jackie Douglas-Jones, a mental health therapist, professional life coach, and feminine life strategist. I'm dedicated to helping adults navigate their unique pathways to effective mental wellness. It is important to understand that mental wellness is deeply complex, and the path to sustained mental wellness requires commitment, determination, discipline, and dedication. Each episode, I endeavor to break down barriers to your personal mental healing process by bringing you raw, real, and authentic conversations, expert interviews, and inspiring testimonies. My ultimate aim is to empower you with hope and an indestructible self-belief that will enable you to confidently take your next steps, wholeheartedly knowing that you also deserve peace and happiness. Right, let's begin this groundbreaking podcast at its source, and that source is me. I've always been passionate about helping those who suffer with anxiety, not only because I've been through my own mental health challenges, but also because I've witnessed the devastating effects of leaving one's mental health unchecked. My hope is that this edited recording done in 2024 is able to give you more of an idea of who I am and why I am such a strong advocate for mental wellness and for those struggling with their mental health. But we're here to kind of dabble into my story and why I'm so passionate about anxiety and how to handle it and what to do with it. Because most people who know me will tell you that I'm a very confident person. I speak very well. I deliver speech very well. I'm outgoing and I'm extroverted. And yes, I definitely am those things, but I'm also not. There are also days where the last thing I want to do is talk to someone on the phone. I will actually ask my husband to phone people because I'm at the point where, like, the thought of actually picking up the phone and talking to someone, it really just makes me so anxious. I cannot. And so I understand when my kids come to me and they go, "Mom, can you make the reservation?" I mean, my kids are all adults. Let's just be honest. My kids are all adults, but they will still come to me, "Mom, can you make the appointment?" Because they have a nervous or anxious feeling about them that actually doesn't allow them to do what they need to do. They will have to do it, but until they find the ways in which they can cope with anxiety, their coping mechanisms, I'm happy to step in because I know what it means to be anxious and I know what it means to suffer terribly with anxiety. So let's get into it. How do we actually define anxiety? So anxiety at its core is actually a very natural response to stress or perceived threats. So that feeling of like unease, worry, maybe like fear, and it can be triggered by anything, any number of things. It can be triggered by childhood trauma. It can be triggered by a loud noise. It can be triggered by an emotional response to a situation that you have no control over. For the most part, anxiety shows up in very different ways in different people. So you can never compare your anxiety to anyone else's. And I just want to reassure you out there, if you are experiencing anxiety and you are experiencing the symptoms of anxiety, you're not alone. We are here. And those symptoms are very real and valid. And I really want you to, if you take anything away today from this podcast, I really want you to take that away. Your feelings are valid. You matter. Your anxiety is real. Don't let anyone tell you different. Like, no, we're just not going to do that. Now, while some level of anxiety is very normal, when I say normal, I mean most people who get anxiety for their moment, it kind of drives them, it kind of pushes them into action. It motivates them. They're excited. They're nervous. They're going to do the things, like they're going to overcome their fear and they're going to just fly. And then there's those who just don't. That is not what we feel. It is a persistent feeling of fear, of nervousness, of nausea, dizziness, a constant need to be alert and jumpy. Someone might say jumpy. And that can really interfere with your daily life and your well-being. And that's actually where my story comes into play, because I am a Gen X. Loud and proud. Thank you very much. The big thing with us Gen Xers is that most Gen Xers will say we drank from the hose, we played in the street. There's all those things, and we turned out fine. We didn't. We're not fine. I'm just speaking for myself. It wasn't fun. I'm not the Gen X that turned out fun. I am the Gen X that will confront. Like, that is definitely me. But yeah, not all of us turned out fine. Not all of us were able to cope. For me, there was always this expectation of the just get on with it attitude. Like, your feelings don't really matter. Just get out there and do the things, We had to suck it up, get on with it. We didn't really talk about our feelings. We didn't show anxiety or fear. We were, for the most part, taught on a very subliminal level that to struggle or to show your emotions was considered weak, especially men. And that was always very interesting to me, because as a really young kid, I was basically taught to take it on the chin, play through the pain, And these were very normal things. We were taught to get up, dust ourselves off, and carry on. Try again. Don't give up, which is great. It is great. But for me personally, showing my feelings got me labeled. I was labeled. I was too emotional. I was too much. I took up too much space. I was a drama queen. As a young kid, it sent a message to me very early on that I needed to fit into the box that was created for me. And I needed to be strong all the time, every day, with everything. The moment I became emotional or cried or got upset, it was met with, there's nothing wrong with you. Get up and carry on. If there is no blood, you are fine. I just want to know who else had that when they were growing up. So eventually I got to a point in my life where I just stopped talking. I learned to shove those feelings of anxiety down and to just get on with it. Now, I'm talking about really shove them down. I was on the stage pretty much my whole high school career. I sang on the stage. I acted on the stage. I even sang with a friend and sang in a whole new key. And the poor guy didn't quite know what was happening. Like, I really was off key. But I sang the whole song, and it was the most horrifying experience of my life. It really was. It was horrifying. But, what could I do? But I never made that mistake again. I was so nervous that I was going to make that mistake that I actually never made it again. But did I get nervous when I went on stage, especially to sing? Yes, I would vomit in a bucket. It was nerve-wracking for me. Acting was fine. Singing was a nightmare. But anyone who knows me from school will say, oh my God, you weren't like that. You weren't insecure. Oh gosh, you were like so confident, and you did all those things. You were on the stage, and you played sport, and you were the captain of this, and you were and I'm like, It's amazing what you can do when you just people please all your life. But you don't really know yourself, and you get lost in the whole myriad of other people's expectations. And that's pretty much what happened to me. And I realized that if I achieved well, especially in sport, when I did that, that was praised. That was what got me the validation that I needed. But it sent a clear message to me that to show emotion was to be hurt, rejected, left out, and unaccepted. If I achieved, then I was great. But I wasn't allowed to complain. I was definitely not allowed to complain. No complaining. Those of us who played sport back in the 90s, 80s and 90s, you didn't complain. There was no prize for 4th, 5th and 6th place. And you played to win, but you also enjoyed your sport as well. It was very hard for me as a young kid because I felt everything all the time, everywhere, and I could never really express that to anyone. And so I often felt very alone and very unaccepted. I also moved schools 3 times because my dad was transferred for work. So I never quite fit into any group. I never had any close friendships that I could build on and create a soft landing for myself, create a foundational friendship for myself. I was never quite in the in club, if we can put it that way, because I moved when I was 10. I moved again when I was 12. And then, of course, I moved into high school. And by the time we got to high school, everyone had their mates. Everyone had their group. And I was like, okay, well, I think I'll just play sport and that's the way I'll do it. So in high school, my anxiety manifested in a number of ways. Stomach pain, shaking, I had trouble sleeping, I had heart palpitations, I also had nausea. I would sometimes be aggressive, quite aggressive, verbally aggressive, but it was more if someone dared to question me, I would take them on head first, balls to the wall, like they would probably be annihilated. And that was usually when I was feeling at my most anxious. And it was hard for me because academically I didn't learn the way that other kids learned. Everybody seemed to understand everything, and then there was me. And my parents kept getting told that my IQ was very, very high. And with my IQ, I should be getting X, Y, Z, Z. I was like, dude, I don't even understand half the stuff that they're speaking about. Like, I do not get it. I do not understand why you keep wanting to put me in the top percentile when I don't even understand what's going on with the X and the Y. But mostly I just felt overwhelmed and really trapped. I could not see a way out. And I struggled really hard to concentrate in class. And back then you didn't go to your teachers and say, I'm feeling really anxious. Your teachers would probably look at you and go, thank you for letting me know. You can sit back down and carry on with your work. So when I got out of high school, I had no coping mechanisms because to this day, I can tell you that my grade 11 and 12 years from school are such a blur. Like, I have virtually no memory of what went down. And I can tell you that it was even that way when I was in grade 12. I remember them putting the science paper exam down in front of me. And I looked at that paper and I looked at the invigilator and I said, did we learn this stuff? It was mind-blowing, but I just couldn't retain information. I could no longer take things in because I think I was just so exhausted. I was taught to cover up my anxiety and to present to the world what was expected of me. So most people would have described me as confident, cocky, sassy, driven. Some people even thought I'd be a lawyer. No. But that is what came about for me. And then by 21, I had pretty much dug myself into such a deep hole of my own making, let it be known, and I actually had a nervous breakdown. And that is actually where my life changed dramatically. That nervous breakdown was the catalyst which began the journey of unlearning some of the negative concepts of how to deal with anxiety, the generational hand-me-down learning methods of shove it down, get on with it, suck it up, you've got this, you're strong. You know, these are all great, but if you are inherently an anxious person, this does not work. When I had my nervous breakdown, my world changed completely. It shifted on its axis completely, and I wasn't able to carry on as I once was. I wasn't able to be the confident, cocky, sassy, direct person that I had been. I was not driven. For most of the 6 months that I spent recovering, I basically went to work, came home, ate my meal, went to bed. That was pretty much my life until I slowly started coming out of it. Until I slowly started to seek help and get therapy. So what therapy worked for me? Talk therapy worked for me. Doesn't always work for everybody else, but it worked for me. And I didn't know it back then, but I would have children who would desperately need help with their mental health. And I would have to shed a lot of the toxic parenting narrative that I came to understand, I would have to unlearn and really kind of put that to bed and actually learn to parent in a new way. So when I had my nervous breakdown, actually for the first time, had no choice. I had to try and resurrect my life and do it in a way that suited me. I had to do it in a way that I believed in and that I was comfortable with. And the problem was that I didn't actually know who I was. I didn't actually know what I liked, what I disliked, who I disliked. I was so caught up in the people-pleasing genre that I actually had no idea where to begin. I had to try and figure out what exactly had gone wrong and how I landed myself in this situation. Some of it was pretty obvious, have to say. But my therapist, who is probably the most patient person I've ever encountered, was instrumental in leading me to a place of accountability and realization. And she was extremely gentle with me. Now, I'm talking about a woman who must have had the patience of a saint, because there were days when I would arrive at therapy and I would literally lie on the couch and go to sleep, because to talk was just overwhelming, daunting, and my anxiety was through the roof. The other thing that you need to remember is that during that time, we're still in the 90s now, the psychological team idea of handling someone's mental health as a team was not quite at the fore then. So if I look at my children, each of them has a team of people who look after them. Maybe a psychiatrist, a psychologist, maybe an academic advisor, maybe a GP, and these people work together to make sure that they're on the right track and that they are accountable for what is happening in their lives. We did not have that in the 90s. So I started dating an amazing man, and that was some 26 years ago, and we're still together today. And I always joke, because I say quite plainly that he started dating me when I was a bit of a loon. Like, I was a little bit, like, there wasn't everything happening up there. How he started dating me in that frame of mind, I'm never quite sure. But I know there had to be a higher power looking after me at that stage, still today. So it was actually him who sowed a seed in my heart, because having met him when I did, I was so ready to tell him all about my life and all about the things I had done wrong, right? Being accountable and, telling people who I am and that I've got it wrong in my life. And I'll never forget, I think he actually said it out of fear, because he might have thought, like, who is this woman? She's like a little bit of a crazy person. He wouldn't have been wrong. But he turned to me very politely and said, you know what, baby steps, we can just do it one day at a time. We can just take it. I don't need to know about your past. I don't need to know what you've got wrong in your past. I'm interested in who you are now and where you're going. And that really struck me upside the head, because I didn't want anyone to have a preconceived idea of who I was, because I had got so many things wrong. I wanted to make sure that people saw me for who I was and all the stuff that had happened, and he just kind of put that to bed. And he was like, later, like, we've been on 2 dates. Let's not dredge up everything now. He was quite right. In fact, can you imagine if I had? He probably would have run a mile. Now he's just here and he can't go anywhere. Great for me. Maybe not for him, but for me. So I wasn't referred to a psychiatrist. I was not put on medication. How I actually made it through, I'm not quite sure, but I know that I used a lot of techniques that are very well known today, but back then they weren't that well known. But my therapist was instrumental in saying to me that I needed to have coping mechanisms. I needed to have things put in place. I needed to have an accountability partner. I needed someone to look at me and go, you need to breathe. Let's go for a walk. Let's breathe. And one of those people was my dad, who is the sweetest man you'll ever meet in your life. And the other was my husband, also the sweetest man you'll ever meet in your life, who took on a massive challenge at the tender age of like 22 with this woman who was struggling. And if that had not been done, I'm not sure where I would be now. So I just want to send a little shout out to those who are struggling with anxiety, to those who feel alone, who feel trapped, who feel daunted, who feel overwhelmed. There is light at the end of the tunnel. There is. I know that you wake up and you're shaking from head to toe. I know that you wake up and your heart is racing, and it kind of just takes your breath away. Like you can't breathe. I know that there are those of you who have stress and anxiety headaches where you can't even see straight. Like your head is so sore, it feels like it's going to explode. I know that there are those who every time they go into a social atmosphere, they get a stomach ache or they suddenly become nauseous. That is all anxiety. That is all anxiety. And I just want to encourage you to please know that there is help out there. There are people who understand. There is someone who has experienced what you are experienced. So you are never walking alone. For a long time, I thought I was alone. And it's only through this journey of mental health that I've walked through with my children that I realized that I never actually was alone. There were a lot of people who really loved me and really wanted what was good and right for me and were really invested in my mental health. And please take that away today. Please take that away for yourself and know that I'm invested in your mental health. I know what it feels like to feel alone and to feel trapped. I know what it feels like to feel like you can't go into anyone. You can't explain it to anyone. I have had many doctors tell me that it's all in my head. Well, duh. Yes. I've had doctors tell me that I'm overreacting, that I'm a paranoid woman. I've had many doctors poo-poo me or like just be so apathetic towards me, which is another reason why I'm so passionate about mental health, because it needs to be taken seriously. It needs to be studied. And I'll talk more about that in our next podcast, actually. I do hope you've enjoyed this little podcast. Please remember that anxiety is something that many of us face. But when you have the right tools and the right support, it is possible to actually lead a fulfilling life and to thrive in spite and despite of your anxiety. So thank you for tuning in to Unfilter That Lens, and I look forward to being back with you next time. Please come again. I really would love to see you again. Thanks. And we'll see you next time. Bye. The opinions and thoughts expressed in this podcast are personal and specific. While we are sure you will get a lot of valuable information from this podcast, please be advised that this is not professional medical advice unless specified otherwise. Please consult your medical professional before making any changes to your wellness regime.